Did it get recorded? What did it get?
Exaggerated.
Yeah,
Well,
he said
And
I
made
mean,
him sound like he was a fucking superhero.
but he said
But
I
that's the
punched the
point.
guy in the face and I beat him, and I didn't. But the Hell's Angels were like, they were on it so fast.
Right, yeah.
Like I had him by the neck and was shaking him around and shit, but they went right over him. They were like, what do you want us to do with this guy? I said, look, don't hurt him or anything. Just get him the fuck out.
Just get him out and
Yeah.
just be done with it. Yeah.
They beat him up,
Jesus.
And they threw
Yeah.
him
So this and okay, let's get this out of the way. Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Not for Nothing. I find myself in New Jersey, and if you didn't know who this man is, I'm going to let him introduce himself.
All right, I'm Shotsie Gorman, tattoo artist, 46 years.
Been tattooing for 46 years, and you are
right.
originally from, and now you are back in New Jersey.
That's right. Well, I started life in Paterson, New Jersey. I traveled around. I ended up in New York, and that's actually where I got introduced to tattooing through Mike Bicati.
Okay.
And then from there, it was illegal at the time, and you would be hounded all the time. And the way the law was written is second offense, getting caught tattooing, you could do a year in the county.
Oh, for real? It was that bad back then?
Oh, yeah. It was like $500 fine.
And this
for
is
the first
in,
offense.
this is in New York City. It's proper.
New York City,
like in one of the boroughs.
Manhattan.
Yeah, because it was illegal there till '96.
Right. And that started in 64. The law went into effect.
I never remember if it was 62 or 64.
Yeah, 64. It was in the court cases. One of the state senator's sons got hepatitis. Meanwhile, they went to a bunch of hookers and they went and got a tattoo.
So that was one of the things when people ask, like, why was it made illegal? And I was like, it had nothing to do with tattooing. Tattooing was just, a casualty of that. It was drug
Well, they
use,
claimed it was the
drug use.
tattooing that gave these guys hepatitis,
Well, of
not
course,
the
but it was-
sex.
Exactly. It wasn't sex and intravenous drug use and just being a fucking train wreck of a human being.
Yeah, so that's when the law went into... Well, it took a couple of years in court, and then the law went into effect. Then it was challenged 3 times by Spiderweb,
Right.
and they wouldn't hear it. I have all that paperwork, by the way. I have the original case notes and everything for that challenge. But he did a tattoo on the steps of the Museum of Modern Art. He tattooed Annie Sprinkle.
Oh my God! I don't think I've ever heard. I mean, I've heard it.
Yeah, it was
before.
all over the news.
Yeah.
It was national news, that it was illegal to tattoo, and he challenged them. So it went to court, and he was challenging the original ordinance, but they just threw it out. They wouldn't listen to it. They wouldn't hear it.
Well, he was like a total. I mean, his entire career he was a total showman. Like
Right.
everybody knew him more from. I guess I was introduced to him by the publications, by like the old Tattoo Times and stuff like that, in the magazines back in the
Right.
day.
Well,
But
he
this
was
is
the
like
first guy to publish, like a major book on contemporary tattooing called Pushing Ink.
Right.
And he was hooked up with Charles Gatewood, and he was tied very closely to the porno industry.
Okay.
So, I'll tell you how I worked for him. That was the first shop I ever worked.
In the 5 boroughs.
No, that was in Yonkers.
Oh, in Yonkers.
He was way up the street.
Because he lived in Connecticut for a time too.
Yeah, but this was before that. He was
before that.
He was living in New York, and I flew out to San Diego and drove to meet up with Cliff Raven, who I'd written to and said, I want to work for you. I'd seen his work, and I had no idea that he was, a serious S&M homosexual, and that's what his shop was based on,
Okay.
I had no idea about that because I found him in some girly magazine with naked women all over him.
Not realizing
And
that
it was
there
all
was 2
painted
sides
on
to
and
every
stuff.
story.
Yeah. Anyway, so I get out there, and he's tattooing me, and I said, look, I want to come to work for you. The guy was a genius. I mean, he spoke 3 languages. You could have eaten off the floor of his shop. He bought that shop from Lyle Tuttle.
Oh, I didn't know
Sunset
that.
Strip.
Okay.
Yeah, Lyle opened that shop up, and he came out from Chicago and bought that shop from Lyle. And so I'm talking to him, and in front of him, he had quart bottles of black, 10-1, 6-1. And I'm like, what is, he said, ask me anything you want, kid. And I said, well, what is this? And he goes, well, this is for my Japanese work, and their gray wash is pre-mixed gray wash. And I was like, wow,
How old are you at this point?
I was 25.
And it's completely open. Like, I mean, nothing is ever spoken about back then.
No.
So Like to be able to make the trip out there and actually get to meet somebody. And
Well, this guy just said, any questions you want to ask? I said, yeah, I wish I knew what questions to ask.
right,
I didn't know anything.
And that's my point. Like to ask questions about bottles on a wall almost makes sense when you have no fucking clue as to what it is you're
I
asking.
didn't know anything. And he grounded my inner arms for hours on end. My arms were like this big, yeah. And, then the boys came in with chaps on with their asses hanging out and stuff. And he goes, you don't want to work here. He goes, everybody who works there is gay. And I'm like, so what? I don't have to play, right? I said, I don't care. I'll wash your car, clean the shit out of a cuckoo clock
Right.
if that's what it takes.
So the funny thing about this is, having heard that story now, it makes sense for everything I know or I've heard about you in the past, because you never really gelled with the community in general, especially at that time.
No.
I think now, I think you fit in more now than you did back then.
Yeah,
Because all
maybe.
the stories we were talking about before, it's always you kind of on the outskirts of it and being.
Yeah,
kind of-
Kristine always said I'm kind of an outsider in the outsiders.
Yeah, exactly. But that's, again, I said it earlier to you. You were one of the first tattooers, like one of the older tattooers that I had heard about. I didn't know you. I was familiar with your work because you had tattooed Tom Butler, who I worked for at the time, and he was just like, yeah, this is all Shotsie Gorman. It was all these beautiful color flowers, like realistic color flowers.
Yeah.
And I was drawn to that because I love doing color work, And I remember hearing the stories about how you were always kind of like you said, you kind of took the reins at the APT or the National Association. Like,
Yeah.
you were kind of, not that you were making waves, but
I was making
you were
waves.
making waves. But it wasn't an intentional thing. You're not going out there pissing in somebody's tea.
No, I wasn't. I was going out there trying to win respect for tattooing. I mean, I came out of a fine art background, which is what I was doing in New York City. I was making sculpture, and I was trying to crack the gallery scene. I didn't go to university, although I worked at 3 or 4 of them teaching drawing and sculpture,
Right.
And including Choate Preparatory School. So I moved to New York City, and I didn't, my ass from a hole in the ground. I didn't know anybody, and I moved into a sub-basement apartment, like Laverne and Shirley, just seeing
Right.
ankles going by in the Lower East Side of Manhattan in the
Just
70s.
Before it was, I guess it was kind of.
Oh, it
almost
was
like a trend,
dangerous, man.
But it was like almost like a trend to be an artist in that kind of a neighborhood.
Well, it's the only thing you could afford.
Or is that, I was gonna say, or is that just romanticizing?
$300 a month
dangerously?
for a room, and I opened the front door, which was all held together with duct tape and stuff.
Yeah.
And half the floor in the living room was dirt.
Oh, for real? So was it? It's
It was
unfinished.
dirt. What had
Yeah.
happened was the building settled, and the whole one side of the room where the fireplace was lifted up out of the floor and just destroyed all the wood and
So
everything. And I'm
cool.
like, I said, "Is that dirt?" She goes, "Yeah, that's why it's so cheap."
Yeah, I was gonna say that cost you an extra $50.
So I'm a little Lower East Side, and I'm probably the only Caucasian there that wasn't there to buy heroin.
Nice. That's
You
good
know,
to-
it was
that's-
all Puerto Rican neighborhood. It was once all Jewish neighborhood. So I rent this sub-basement apartment from this Jewish family, right? And across the street, they were renovating an old brownstone, and I'd go out at night and take the rubble that they took off the walls, all the plaster and stuff,
Yeah.
and throw it on the floor, right?
So you
rake it out
the
and
floor.
smooth it out, and then up on First Avenue, I was between C and D. Between A and B on First Avenue, they were putting in a new storm drain, and they had these bags of Saccrete, pre-made concrete. And I'd go up there at 2 o'clock in the morning, steal a bag, bring it back, mix it in the bathtub, which was in the kitchen, by the way. And then,
Which I always thought was funny. It's like weird.
Yeah.
The first time I'd seen that as a kid.
so I poured a floor, and I smoothed it all out and made a floor, and the ceiling was like a woman in her 9th month, and all the ceiling was broken away from the walls at the top. And it was a pretty big woman, maybe 300-pounder. And when she walked across the floor, it would go whoop, whoop, like
So you
this.
can
yeah.
actually see that.
So I got a dumpster dove, and I got all this fabric, and I made it like a harem, I
Nice.
stapled, so I wouldn't have to see that ceiling going like this and that.
Now, how long were you there for?
God, I was there for 2 years.
Okay, nice.
And that's and so I didn't have work, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I sold everything I had, and moved to New York City, and I was 23,
Nice.
20, no, it was 21. And
Now, did you have any formal art education or anything like that?
no, it was all self-trained.
Just something that you were self-trained.
As
wanted
they
to
say,
do.
I'm an autodidact.
An autodidact.
Yeah, autodidact, self-taught.
Oh, self-taught. Okay.
Right, it's a fancy word.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a fancy word.
People
for
would
it.
ask me, where'd you go to school? So anyway, so I don't know how to meet people, so I'm going to these art bars where all the artists are hanging out, and they're snobby bastards, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? And I found this one art bar that had a bar and a pool table. Well, I'm a pool player.
Oh, okay.
I played pool for a long time, right? So I went in and I started kicking their ass on the pool table, and I'm playing for food so I can eat, right? You know, and they're like, "Who the fuck are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm new in town. I'm a sculptor, you know, and this and that." And my room was about the size of this, right? And I said, "But I need work, you know." And they go, "Oh, you're a sculptor, you know." Okay, so this is what happens when you're a sculptor. That means that you do rough carpentry.
Okay.
If you're a painter, you work as an electrician's helper, right? If you're a singer, dancer, actor, you work in the bar, bartending, or waiting tables, so you have freedom to do your auditions.
So you have an unofficial sideline.
Right. But this is how you survive, right? And I said, okay, I've done carpentry. As a kid, I worked every summer building houses with these two crazy guys. And I said, all right, so where do I find work? And they go, well, you go out looking for a dumpster. I'm like, are you joking? No, you look for a dumpster. He said, if there's a dumpster, there's a job. So now I'm walking around Soho, which is south of Houston, right? Houston, you know that area in New York. And so I see a dumpster after a week of looking. And I go over it, and there's two guys getting off the freight elevator. And I said, hey, that job's on the 4th floor? And they're like, no, it's on the 3rd floor. Oh, who's the contractor again? Mike Bacchietti. And just as they said that, the doors closed, right? And I'm like, shit. So now I'm yelling, Mike Bacchietti. He's 30 feet up. He sticks his head out. He's got really long hair and a ponytail. And he's like, I'm like, send the elevator down. So he sends the elevator down.
And he has no idea the fuck you are.
No. And I never met him. I don't know who he is either. So I get in the elevator. It's one of those ones that close like that. And I step out, I open the elevator, and he's standing there like this. And I put my hand out. How you doing? I'm Shotsie Gorman. I said, I'm new in town. I'm a sculptor, and I'm looking for work. He goes, how the hell did you get my name? I said, the two guys that just got off the elevator. And he started laughing. He said, I don't believe it. He goes, I haven't even started this job yet. I just had the dumpster delivered. We got to do demolition.
So you got in on the ground floor.
Right. So he said, can you read a plan? I'm like, yeah. He said, well, take a look at the plan. Tell me what you think. And I'm like, well, you could start this, do that. And he's like, do you have tools? I'm like, yeah, I have my own tools. He said, he's laughing the whole time. I'm like, this kid's crazy. Yeah. He said, come back Monday morning. If you can do what you say you can do, I'll hire you because I need help on this job.
Killer.
And that's how we became friends.
And he was the one that eventually got you into...
Right. He wasn't tattooing at the time, but he was well established. He was teaching art at LaGuardia Community College, about to become tenured. He was in many exhibitions. He's in 4 or 5 books, and he was one of the most brilliant intellectual people I've ever met in my life.
Really?
He was like an encyclopedia. If he took on a subject and he was interested in it, he knew everything about it and could quote stuff. It was very impressive, you know. And his son Mihai is a really wonderful kid.
Okay.
He ran the shop after Mike passed.
Right.
You know. So anyway, he, they kind of adopted me. I was living in the Lower East Side, eating hamburger helper without the hamburger, you know, and taking celery and sticking stuff down inside of it so I could get out of the deli with enough food to eat. And so they'd say, come out to the house and have dinner with us. And his wife was from the South, and Linda. And they had 2 young boys, and it was like I had family.
Were they living in the city or living?
Yeah, they were living on Houston and Bowery, right on the corner.
Oh wow!
2 blocks down for CBGBs.
It's amazing. It's such a different neighborhood now.
Oh
Jesus.
yeah, I mean it was just like all these guys coming back from Vietnam. I witnessed several murders in New York when I was living there, and one of them was right there in front of Mike's house.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't want to go into that. It's a horrifying story.
Yeah,
but at any rate. So he's living down there on Bowery in Houston, and I'd be filthy, covered with sheetrock dust, you know, and it's like carrying sheetrock up 4 flights of stairs.
Yeah.
You know, 2 sheets of 5/8 4x8 sheetrock, man. I'd go home, I'd be like...
I was going to say, the last thing you got to do is start creating art.
Yeah. And so they'd always have me at the house. And then he said, I'm looking at being tenured, and he said, I have these stuff that I got when I was in the Navy. He goes, and some of it's kind of rude, like a girl with her legs spread and
Right.
says, here's my half, where's yours?
Like old school proper
medieval
tattoos, yeah.
He said, I have to get this stuff covered up. So I started going with him to tattoo shops. We went to Big Joe's, we went to Spider Web, and he ended up, I'm going to not remember the guy's name. A guy was working at Big Joe's. He retired from tattooing. He became a nurse. I can't think of his name. It'll come to me. But at any rate, he decided to get sleeved, Japanese style.
So he was going to doing cover-ups and stuff like that?
Yeah, he's doing all cover-ups.
Okay.
And he starts getting tattooed, and he said, really excited about this tattooing. He goes, I want to find out more about it. So I went to the New York Public Library, and there was one book.
That's surprised it was even one, to be honest.
It was The Strange Practice of American Practice of Tattooing by Dr. Albert Perry, which was total 19th century crap.
Right.
And he starts quoting in that book from Cesare Lombroso, who was an Italian social scientist, who said that tattoos were proof of predisposition to sociopathology. So if you had tattoos, you were a criminal.
You were a fucking nut job. Yeah, exactly.
You were a criminal.
You were most likely going to end up behind bars.
Right. And so who was he interviewing? Prisoners. Military guys and prisoners. And most of the military guys were in the brig,
Well, it's amazing, too, because that hasn't changed much. There was a study just done recently on tattooing pigment and what it does under the skin and how it can affect people with lymphoma and stuff like that. And they only focused on, a certain bracket of tattooed individuals. And it showed a 20%, but it only focused on one group of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's what they did. He focused on people that were in prison. So, wow, your tattoos might have something to do with the fact that you're a criminal.
You're in prison. Exactly.
Yeah, but you're in prison.
Exactly.
So,
Couldn't possibly be you're a piece of shit.
So I got excited. I thought, okay, so there isn't 100 books on this subject. This is going to be, I'll be able to work tattooing, learn to tattoo, and be able to stop carrying sheetrock. And I can create something that's not been done before because there's no information.
So now, did you know anybody who was heavily tattooed? Besides him?
Yeah, I met people in New York
Were heavily tattooed.
Yeah.
So there was some kind of a culture for it back then. It wasn't just like throwing a dart at a board.
There was half a dozen people working illegally in New York at the time. And Mike got information about how to get equipment. And I said, I want to learn to tattoo as well. And so we started talking about opening up a business together.
Without even having actually
any experience.
Yet. Yeah.
And I'm like going to flea markets looking for
old tattoo kit, like
sterilizers, dry heat sterilizers.
At least you were thinking at least you started there.
Glass bead sterilizers, all of it was crap, And Mike started buying stuff, and every penny I made, I put into buying equipment. And I bought, a dry heat sterilizer at the Englishtown flea market,
nice.
Where I met a bunch of guys from South Jersey who were tattoo artists, who were threatening me not to start tattooing.
Yeah.
Well,
did they? I mean, you were still in the city at this time.
I was living in New York.
So when you started tattooing, were you in Manhattan or?
Manhattan.
And how long did you work in Manhattan on the ground before you decided to come
2.5 years.
So 2.5 years, and it was the two of you guys that opened up the shop together?
No, we were going to open up a shop together, and we were talking about opening up in Hoboken, New Jersey, because it was right over the path.
Right over, yeah.
Because New York was illegal.
Yeah.
And so I said to Mike, don't walk into the city, don't go in there and ask for a license to open up a business. Let me talk to my father. My father's a cop in Patterson.
Right.
He's going to know people that know people.
Yeah, people you need to talk to, not everybody.
Right. You don't go in there like banging your face. And exactly. So he did. He went over there and he said, I want a license for opening up a tattoo shop. They said, you can open up a shop here. But we had already done research and there was no ordinance.
That's the best part when you actually, because that's something that happens today. Like when I had moved my shop, we were looking to get out of downtown. So we're like, we'll go to the next town up, North Haven, And as soon as you walk in there, like, you can't do that here. It's illegal. Yeah. And I'm like, but is it? And it wasn't.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things, I'm not looking to fight the system just to get into a town that I know nothing about. So
he walks in. 2 days later, they held an emergency meeting of the city council and banned tattooing.
Wow.
In Hoboken.
Well, because he fucking...
Mike, what the fuck are you
doing? I told you not to talk to anybody.
And so his wife got really pissed because she liked the cachet of being able to say her husband was a fine artist and a professor.
Right.
And she said this tattooing is like low life crap, you know.
And back then, it
was
not too far from the truth.
right. So at any rate, what happens is they end up their relationship came apart after 25 years.
Oh, that's all because he was trying to pursue a different trade.
Yeah, I think that was it. You know, the details.
You don't.
I don't know the intimate details, but they broke up.
Right.
And then Mike and I had a big argument because I spent every penny I had on buying equipment, and we were supposed to have a business. And he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And I'm like, "What am I supposed to do now?"
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So I started tattooing out of my flat, and I met this gay couple who are architect and interior designer. They hired me to do all these jobs, so we didn't work together anymore. Me and Mike, we had a fight, argument, and so they offered me a loft on 26th and 7th, Chelsea, which wasn't anything posh at the time.
Oh yeah,
but Chelsea Hotel was a few blocks down the street. So I had a 1,000 square foot loft, and I built a little 10 foot by 10 foot box in there and set it up as a tattoo shop.
Nice.
And I started advertising in the back of the Village Voice. And the first ad I put in there, well, I tried to get a job with Spider Web, right? So this is before I did that. I was still in the Lower East Side. So I met Cliff Ravens, and Cliff Ravens says, "Where you living?" I said, "New York City." He goes, "Hey," he picks up the phone. He goes, "Spider, I got this kid in a chair. You're going to give him a job when he gets back to New York City." And I'm like, I said, "That guy's a little crazy, you know." He said, "Yeah, but he's going to give you a spot to work."
Yeah, which is kind of, you just need that foot in the door.
So I call him up, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm back in town." He goes, "Oh, come on in, kid. Let's have a meeting." So I go into his place. The carpet's all balled up. You know, it's like not attached to anything.
It's the polar opposite of being in California.
Right. So he's got this overstuffed chair with the stuffing coming out of it. He comes out and he's wearing this frock coat with a frilly thing in the front. These wraparound sunglasses. He's smoking a joint the size of a White Owl, cigar. And he's got a bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand. And I go, "So, kid, Cliff said that I should hire you." And he sits down in the chair and he's drinking and smoking. And I'm like, I knew this guy was a little crazy, but because I had met him before with Mike. And he's talking to him, and he goes, "You know this guy Chris Burden?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know who he is. He's a crazy artist." He goes, "Yeah, he's the best artist in the country," he said, "the most important guy in the modern art." Okay, so this is what Chris Burden does. He has himself crucified to a Volkswagen. They drive nails through his wrists, crucify him to a Volkswagen. The next thing he did was he had himself shot through the arm. Then he put himself in a room with wild coyotes for a week.
Jesus.
Then he put himself in a room with high tension wires.
So more of a performance artist, not really.
Right. So this guy, and he's talking to me, and I'm like, he goes, "Isn't that guy great?" And I'm like, "The guy's an asshole with a death wish. What the hell does that have to do with anything with art?" I said, "That's not art. I mean, this guy should just commit suicide and get it over with, And he's like, "Oh, kid, come on now," and he's like leaning back in the chair, and he went like this.
Just passed out.
So I went, Spider? Okay, so I took the joint, put it in the ashtray, and I left.
And never went back.
No, I went home, and I'm like, "This guy's fucking nuts, right?" And he thinks Chris Burden's a great artist, and I just told him he was an asshole. I'm never going to get that job, right? Next morning, I get a phone call. It's him.
And he's having to come back.
"You're funny, kid." He goes, "Come on in, come on down again. We'll set you all up." And I go, and he's introducing me to this girl, Ellen. He calls her Original Sin. He had to tag everybody with a name. He goes, "She's going to collect the money. You're going to do the work. She's going to collect the money. And I'm going to Woodstock and building a house in Woodstock. So I won't be around for a while." And I was like, "Spider, I need help. This is supposed to be like an apprenticeship, I said, "I set up my machines, and there's ink shooting out of the top of the tube. I don't know what's going on, Don't worry about it, kid. I'll help you out." And he leaves, and he's gone for a month.
And you're basically left in the shop to try to...
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Right?
Now, how are you guys relying? Were there people coming and going?
Yeah, well, we're coming for Spider. So after 3 weeks of taking the train from Manhattan to Yonkers, sitting in the shop going, "Spider's not here. I can take care of you." Like, "Nah, I want Spider, Okay, great. So after about 3 weeks of that, next guy comes through the door. "I want to get a tattoo from Spider Web." "I'm Spider Web." I said, "Come on, sit down."
Good on you. That's fucking killer.
So I start tattooing, right? And he's gone for a month and a half. And so I make all this money. as Spider Webb. So he comes back, he comes in, and I swear he was tripping. I said, Spider, I need help. You know what I mean? I called Huck Spalding. Huck told me that I had the needle bars in backwards, which is why the pigment's shooting out of the top of the tube. I can't tune my machines. I don't know what to do. He had like milk cartons filled with old broken machines, right? Jonesy's, and I mean, really nice.
Well, back then
machines.
there was only cool old shit.
Right. He dumps it all on the counter and he goes, just take one of these and fix it. I mean, fix it. I don't even know what makes it
That's
run.
what got me into trouble in the first place.
I don't know what I'm doing. I said, I need to learn more about color and this and that. And he goes, here. He picks up one of those like ketchup containers, little white ketchup container, and he puts white and a little bit of yellow and he mixes it up and he said, this is the greatest color you're ever going to see. And he throws it in the trash and leaves. And I'm scratching my head like, what just happened?
Here endeth the lesson.
What just happened? So I'm back to work as Spider Webb. Now, he published a book, Pushing Ink, in which he credits Ellen, the woman who was working there, with about 30 tattoos, page after page. She never had touched the tattoo machine.
Oh, for real? Were they
There was
yours,
some
or
other
was
guy who
somebody
was
else?
doing the work, and he didn't like the guy and fired him. So he credited all of his work and published it in a book. He thinks this is funny, you know?
Again, simpler times, man.
So he comes back. We're sitting there in the waiting room. You know, 3 guys come in. They're like, we want to get a tattoo from Spider Webb. And Spider stands up. He goes, yeah, I can help you out. I'm Spider Webb. And they go, no, we want that Spider.
Oh, shit. So he had no idea you were actually his name.
No. And I'm like, humming. He goes, what? I'm Spider Webb. And they're like, no, my buddy got tattooed by him, and that's Spider Webb, you know?
That's fucking cool.
So he goes, get the fuck out. He throws them out. You're fired. He fired my ass.
For real?
Yeah. He fired me.
I mean, I can't say I don't blame him.
I said, Spider, I said, you know that bag of fucking money you got when you came back? If I had tattooed as Shotsie, nobody would have fucking got tattooed.
Exactly.
Get the fuck out. Okay, so I got fired.
So is this how you end up in your own place now, or?
Yeah, so I'm in my loft. So I build a fucking cube, you know. Mike is going, no, we're not going to have a business together. I ended up working at Spiders. So I started advertising in the back of the Village Voice. And my first ad was a pretty big one. And it said, call in the web, W-E-B-B. Tired of getting bullshit from Spider? Call me. I'm available. And that's what my ad said.
Really?
Yeah.
And how the fuck did he...
He went ballistic.
That's fucking funny
I started getting
shit.
phone calls from people screaming at me, you can't do that to Spider, you know, this and that.
Wow. And this is a day and age where somebody would have tried to...
Well, Spider wasn't that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But these were his guys. But then Charles Gatewood, who's a very famous photographer, and Annie Sprinkle, we had become friends when I was working there. Some other events happened when I was there, like weird stuff. Like the one time he came in to do a tattoo, I had just been there weeks, right? And he did come in to do one tattoo. It was this Nordic guy, Savile Row suit, you know, like a $2,000 suit,
yeah.
right? He said, can I talk to you, you know, because I want to get a tattoo. I'm like, well, there's nobody here. He said, I want to get my scrotum sack tattooed with polka dots. He said, but I don't want the polka dots to be color. I want that to be skin, and I want black in the background.
Oh, Christ.
And I yelled, Spider, hey, this guy's here for you, you know?
Nice.
So Spider comes out, and he goes, so what do you want? You know how he... I don't know if you remember being around him, but
I've only ever been around him once, the first New York
thick
convention.
New York accent. You know, his real name is Joseph Patrick O'Sullivan, so, you know, he's got the Irish
Super
New York...
name too, yeah.
And he said, I want to get my scrotum tattooed. He goes, okay, $7,000. Okay. So he fucking drops his drawers. We're in the back. We put gloves on. Ellen's got one side of his scrotum
And you
sack,
guys just
and I
pull.
got the other, and we're stretching it out, right? And he's tattooing this guy's scrotum sack. Meanwhile, he's getting like almost erect, and then flaccid again, and almost erect. And I looked at Spider. I said, if this guy comes, I quit. I'm not staying around here because this is not what I, put in for. You know what I mean? And he's like, you know. And then the guy comes back a couple days later and he wants a railroad track going around his penis, right? And I said, I'm not getting involved with that one, you know. And he was unhappy because Spider had tattooed the head of his penis to look like a plum. And he didn't like the fact that when he pulled open his urethra, you could see pink down inside.
Oh.
I had to go outside. I was like panting and thought I was going to pass out.
Jesus, yeah, that's pretty hard.
This was
dude.
life with spider web.
Well,
you
it
know?
seemed like it seemed like back then that too. You had like a lot of that, like that underground culture that embraced it.
Well, he was part of it. I mean, he was in the porno thing.
Yeah.
This Mark 10.5-inch Stevens used to hang out there. That was his nickname. And he was marrying a guy who was getting trans into a woman. And he was going to Norway to have the surgery.
And this is back in like the mid '80s.
Oh, yeah. This is early 80s.
Yeah.
Early 80s. And so every time he got something done, like they split his penis and tucked it up inside him and stuff, they'd come to the shop and everybody would be taking photographs.
Right.
I'm like, whew, you know, I had to go a couple times. I'd have to be outside. Like, I don't want to see
It's
this.
like, yeah, that's a crazy world to fall into. I mean, tattooing in general is nuts, but that's a whole different subculture on its own.
It was.
You know?
It was shocking for me. I mean, I came from northern New Jersey. You know,
Yeah.
here I am in Manhattan. I'm thinking I'm cool. I can handle it. You know, I was like, holy shit, what is going on here?
Where
You
the
know?
fuck am I?
But I got fired anyway and thrown out. And I started tattooing out of my loft. And I did that for a while. And I used to stick my head out the window and say, are you guys cops? They'd call, you know. And I say, are you cops? No. Okay. And I send a basket down with the key.
Jesus.
So they could open the door and come in.
I remember hearing stories with, what's his name? I can't remember his fucking name from the magazines. Oh my Christ, I can't believe I forgot his name. But he used to have the old shop, and he used to basically, go to this fucking, go to this phone booth, make a phone call, wait there 10 minutes, someone will come pick you up. And then they would take you over to the shop. And
Yeah,
stuff
because
like
you
that,
could go to jail for doing a it was $500 fine if you got caught, you know, and you could go to jail on the second offense. So it was nothing to play around with.
Yeah, it's no joke. Yeah.
But after that, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore.
You want to get out and make it a little bit more legitimate.
So I went over to Jersey side, and I was looking around right on the river, Weehawken, North Bergen, and Union City. And Union City didn't have a tattoo shop. None of them had tattoo shops. And there was Gutenberg was right next door, which was famous for having more bars than any other city in the state of New
place
Jersey.
you want to open up a tattoo shop.
So I got to go to. I go make a deal with the landlord, and I rent a spot with an apartment in the back, and there was a hole in the floor, 6 feet around. Looked down into the basement because there was a fire and they never fixed it. And one old
Jesus.
man lived in the building. I got it for chump change a month, $250 a month.
And all you gotta do is fill in another hole.
Well, I was doing carpentry and stuff, so I got some pump jacks and I actually repaired the floor. I ran exterior electrical. I mean, I did this all on my own. This is all experience that I had working in New York.
Exactly,
and
working
as a
in the
teenager.
trade anyways, yeah.
So I built that place, you know, and it was a long shotgun kind of place. And, you know, I had a little door in the front. I put a half wall with a mirror so I could see who was coming through the door. And I opened up and it was 90% Cuban.
Oh, for real?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was all Cubans. And so I'm open a couple of months and the Marielitos came. You know about the Marielitos?
No, I don't actually.
So, you know that the Al Pacino film, "Hey, say hello to my
Oh,
little
yeah, yeah,
friend."
yeah.
Well, he was a Marielito.
Oh, okay.
So who the Marielitos were was the Castro decided to empty out all the insane asylums and the hospitals and prisons and put them on pleasure boats and send them to
And then
Miami.
send them over.
170,000 people all at once.
Holy shit.
By the time the government found out about it, the
They were already
Cubans
spread out.
grabbed them. 75,000 of it end up in Union City, New Jersey.
Holy shit.
So I had just opened, and nobody was coming to me because they were like, "Who's this white guy?" You know,
Yeah, right.
in our town. So I got my place open, and I get a knock at the door. This was like after it made big news, the Marielitos, you know, and they were from the port of Mariel. So that's what they called them, Marielitos.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of them were out of prisons, but many of them were actual political prisoners, and they would tattoo themselves between their thumb and index, and to say what they were. So if they were killers, they had a pitchfork.
Right,
They
okay.
had flames, they were a torch. You know, they
So
have
now
all
these are tattoos that you're doing on them?
No,
Or
no, these are
showed up
tattoos
with
they
these
had
tattoos?
done in prison.
Right, okay.
So that they could survive, because prisoners are mostly right-wing Castro supporters.
They're going to want to know who they're dealing with right out of the
Right,
open.
they would have got killed if they said they were anti-Castro.
Yeah, right.
So they got these tattoos, right? So we get a knock at the door. I go out and I look at these guys. They got trench coats on. I'm like, who the hell? And I look out the window. I look at their feet, and I'm like, these guys are cops, right? I don't know who you are, but I know you guys are cops by your shoes. Up there, I'm like, what's up? They're like FBI, and they flash their badges, right? And they come in. They drop a pamphlet in front of me about that thick with all these pictures of prison tattoos. And they give me these cards, and they're like, anybody comes in here and wants to get these covered up, you got to call us. And I'm like, wait a minute. I live here, right, in the back of the shop. I said, there are 75,000 Marielitos here. I'm going to call you and rat them out? What do you want me to end up in a bag somewhere? They're like, this is your civic duty. Okay, good. Give me your home number. I said, I'll call you first.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So
you can have it when I call you.
So they go, whoosh. I'm like, God damn, fucking FBI, right? So next day, I get a knock at the door, and there's a couple of guys, and they're like, would you cover this up? And I'm like, hell yeah, come on in. Next. Then nothing happens for about a week, and I'm not making any money, you know, and I get a knock at the door. There's a guy in a white suit, hat, little Earl Flynn mustache, smoking a cigar, carrying a bottle of whiskey or whatever, something, right? And I open the door and I, yes, sir, what can I do for you? I'm not really open yet. And he goes, I just want to say thank you for helping my people, you know? And I said, your people?
Was he like the godfather of the town?
Well, I said, I know that the whole town is run by Italian mobsters because I had to pay them all off to get open, you know? And, you know, matter of fact, the mayor got busted in some $350,000 embezzlement deal by the FBI while I was there. Anyway, so I'm like, and so I know you're not an official. I said, what do you mean, my people? And he comes in, he introduces himself. I'm the Santero, a Santeria priest.
Oh,
right?
shit, okay.
So I don't know if you know anything about Santeria, but it's a mixture of African traditions hiding behind Christian traditions.
Right.
So when the missionaries went to Africa, they had their own virgin story, and so they'd have to worship the Virgin Mary, but behind it would be this African one. Yeah. But they do blood sacrifices like goats and
certain things don't
guts
get. They don't get.
And then he does all these like sort of magic healing technology and stuff like that. So I'm like, Santero, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, you know how it is. He goes, this is, you know, Cuban neighborhood. He goes, if two Cubans get in a car accident, they don't call the cops. He said, they call me, and I make everything okay, you know. He said, so I brought this Felipe Segundo brandy. He goes, would you like to have some brandy? And I'm like, okay. I put a couple of glasses. Next time I come, he said, I'll bring you a real Cuban cigar, and we'll have some brandy and cigars.
Nice.
Okay, thank you. See you. And I'm like, what the hell?
It sounds, you know what it is? It sounds very romantic and very like, it just sounds amazing, but then you keep waiting for the dark side of things.
Right. So what happens? Next day, I get up, I'm cleaning the shop and stuff like that, right? I open the door, and there's a line. A line going down the block. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, hey, man, we can get tattoos. You know, they cover the tattoos. So they start coming in. I had to, like, take numbers. I worked, you know, from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the morning. And the next day, it was the same thing. And I'm like, how did you guys... I mean, nobody's ever stopped in here.
Works out, exactly.
Oh, the Santero said that we had to come see you.
That's
okay,
kind of
so then the old ladies started to come. You know, the Cuban women, like, you know, hey, we made you something to eat. Thank you for taking care of my nephew, my cousin, you know. And all of a sudden I was in, you know.
Now, do you speak Spanish or anything? Or
I started to learn Spanish while I was there. I took lessons in Spanish.
How long was the shop down there now?
2.5 years.
Nice.
But I had problems with it's a long story too, but the landlord was an old man. He was the only one in the building. This Italian guys, wannabe mobsters, kept taking him home on Sundays and the kids and feeding them and stuff. They got him to sell them the building for a third of its real value for some low interest, like 8% interest when it was 20% interest at the time. And they said, don't worry about it. You could live there and we'll let you live in your place. He's been there for 60 years, right? As soon as they sold the building, they threw him on the street, put his
Yeah.
stuff outside. Then they come to me, right? And they're like, we own the building now. We want to double your rent and do this, do that. And I'm like, yeah, you can kiss my ass. I got a lease. A lease is to the building, not to the owner. So you can go fuck yourself. I'm not going to do anything, you know. Well, we'll have to kill you then. Okay. So they show up at the shop, and I beat the fuck out of the both of them, the two brothers, the speciales. I roll out onto the street, and all the Cuban guys are all around. Like, I even know how they knew it was happening. They're all around, right? And these guys were big. They weren't little, you know. I've trained in the martial arts for many years. I don't know if you knew that. But, yeah, I had my own dojo for a while. I was second-degree black belt, and I could handle myself. So, but these guys were bears. They ripped out a piece of my beard, you know, they bit me, and, you know. So I'm in the crowd. The crowd's like, kill him, you know, kill him. Here. And one guy hands me a club out of the crowd. So I just beat them up.
It's fucking movie shit.
Yeah. And the cops come. They take those guys away in ambulances. They arrest me. And we all go, you know, I had to go to the hospital because I was bleeding. My face was bleeding. And the Cuban guys were like, give me the stick. The cops are coming. You know, food. So I find out what was happening was they owned 2 other buildings. They were renting apartments to the Cubans, taking security, coming in a month later, throwing them out. Not giving
So they
them
were fucking with everybody in the
everybody.
Yeah.
So they're telling me that they're connected to the mob and all that. So I got, you know, I had to make sure things were okay. So I go back to Patterson and I contact Streaky Gatto, who's the Don in Patterson.
Okay.
I know through my father, who's a cop. So I'm like, can I meet with you, you know, and talk to you? And he goes, what do you want to talk about? I talked to him on the phone. I'm like, these guys, the specialities, I had a fight with them. They stole this guy's building. And I said, they're telling me they're connected. I just want to know what the story is.
He basically told me he's fuck them with bullshit.
Yeah, he said all they do is steal credit cards from people because they had a liquor store. So they steal credit cards and they
So they were small time
sell them, hoods, right? Don't worry about it. Do whatever you got to do. So then they started threatening to blow the building up. I'd go out. I'd have to come home, leave my first wife in the car, go in with a flashlight, go in the basement, look to see if there were fire bombs, go upstairs to see if there was anything, and then I could go into the house. And
What a fucking nightmare.
And that's why I left.
That's a good reason.
Yeah.
So you were one of the first, from that perspective, like the magazines and everything else, like you really did kind of like break new ground. We were talking about this earlier. Like you were one of the first. This was before the whole, you know, I don't want to say it's before Ed Hardy, because that's not the case.
No,
Obviously.
Hardy
It's just
did Tattoo Time before I did.
Right, but it just seemed like there was a different audience almost. You know what I mean? Like I think you broke ground in more of a commercial kind of way, over what like where Ed was more about the tattoo community.
No, I think Ed was more about Ed.
Well, okay.
If you go back and you look at Tattoo Times,
that's a good point. That makes more sense than what I just said.
I can show you my tattoo magazines, and it's all about other tattoo artists.
Right.
I'm not like on every page. My work is not on the covers, you know.
Right. So that's actually a good way. That's actually a good like.
So what I tried to do, my second issue, I did a whole issue on women.
Again, breaking a little bit of new ground.
Oh, I mean, you wouldn't believe the shit I got for that.
Yeah.
You know, I had Carrie Barba, you know, I had all these women who were like breaking ground. It was like women in tattooing. That was new, right? It was brand new.
I remember when I first, and I didn't get it until 93, but I remember like seeing Julie Moon, Carrie Barba, fucking Patty Kelly, like a lot of different, and you know, like a lot of these women popping up, and they were few and far between back in the day,
Jackie Gresham.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did articles on all these women, right? And I got threats from all these tattoo artists. What do you think this is? I don't even understand what you're talking about. Why are all these women in there and this and that and the other thing, you know? But the first issue had a picture of Paul Jeffries on the cover.
Right.
And it was an article about Paul Jeffries on the first issue.
Right.
And it was all about other tattoo artists, not me.
Not you.
It wasn't a vanity publication.
Right.
I did the best paper, the highest quality paper. Look. Ozzy Award.
Yeah.
Best new magazine under 100,000 copies.
And this is from 1990.
Right.
Nice.
And I also won a secondary Ozzy. And this is for my tattoo publication.
Now, was this published worldwide or nationwide?
It was published in America, but it was distributed all over the world through
Okay.
Bortz, which was part of the Playboy distribution network.
Now, how did that fall? Like, is this something like a project that you had on your own, and then, I mean, I would imagine the publishing and everything else kind of just grows a little bit naturally, and then someone's going to take an interest.
Well, what I did was I went out to the library and bought books on publishing a magazine.
And then just learn how to do it yourself.
I just did it, and everything I read said, if you don't have 2 million, don't bother.
No, really?
And I didn't have squat, but I was like, I'm doing this, and I went out and scrounged around, and I hired writers to interview people all over the country,
Right.
and I put the best paper in it. I had all the prints were, the high quality reproductions. Nobody had orange skin or yellow
Yeah, right.
skin.
Where everything, because back then, because it was all done on shit newsprint, and it was like,
And so I got through the 3rd issue, and the company that was printing for me, the guys who did the printing wanted to use it as a distribution point to show everybody what quality they did. And it turned out that the owners of the company were born again Christians.
Oh, how did they let that slide in the first
They
place?
had no idea what it was being done.
Oh.
When these guys said they wanted to send it out as a sample, they wrote me a letter, 3 sentences. We are never publishing this smut again. That kind of thing.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit, I'm right in the middle of doing the next issue, which was all about music. I had interviewed all these musicians, right? Tom Waits, a whole bunch of people.
Oh, shit, for real.
And then I had sheet music going back to Lydia, the tattooed lady, in the book, all set up to go, and they refused to print it. And then the economy crashed. Remember the Bush brothers?
Yeah, yeah.
And I went out and tried to get money, and everybody was like, Tattoo Magazine, who wants to read that shit?
So how many issues did you have under your belt at that
3.
point? 3.
That was it.
Oh, shit.
And I was either mortgage. I had a baby, second baby on the way, and I would have had to do a second mortgage on the house.
And this was what year would this have been?
89.
So that's when you get that in 90. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now when did Nationals start? Like Nationals was like one of the first.
Yeah, National started. I was one of the first members of National. Actually started because of Peter Poulos.
Yeah.
And Peter Poulos knew that Crazy Eddie had this, his pigments and stuff. He wanted to do business. So Peter said, why don't you form a club and let's have a convention.
Oh,
this
so
was
that's
all-
how the national convention started.
That's how it started. Peter
Oh,
Poulos. Yeah, and then
So this is in direct against demographics then. Demographics.
yeah. I mean, it was. He just stood up and said, "Okay, here we go. We're going to have this business, and we're going to revolve around doing the convention, and then we're going to have all this market share." And he had all the pigments, and that's how it really got going. And then I was one of the early members. I think I was like member number 27 or
Nice.
something, And then as they were doing the same thing every year, and things were changing, right? Like I said, the health department was coming down on tattooing, and Pat Sinatra was a graphic designer, and she worked with me on Tattoo Advocate, the first issue. Then I hired a pro after that. At any rate, I said to Pat, why don't we just get in there, and I'll go in and I'll tell him I'm going to take over as the public relations guy. You can do all the design work for the press releases and stuff like
Right.
that. And we went in and we made a presentation, and Flo and Don agreed to it. And by then, Eddie and Flo and Don were kind of...
Were they all separate on their own?
Well, they were starting to go that way
Yeah.
because of some family business.
Yeah.
And money,
Typical.
Yeah. So we got in there, and I handled the big Philly convention, and there was I did all the PR. So I was on AM Philadelphia. I was on Channel 7 Eyewitness News, all promoting this convention.
Right.
There was a blizzard. 7,000 people through the door in 2 days. Never, ever had they had anything like that before.
I can imagine, because that was before conventions were really... You still had Tattoo Tour at that point, right?
No, they weren't around.
Tattoo Tour didn't start
That
yet?
didn't start till much later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I kind of relate those... because it was early on. Like, I had gone to one national convention as a guest, and then Tattoo... And then, like, a year later, I did Tattoo Tour Chicago.
What
as
happened
a
was Pat Sinatra and I sat down with Eddie, who was like, but Flo and Don.
Yeah.
I was like, look, we need to create a 3-legged stool here. people are getting shut down or they can't open. There's laws against tattooing. There were still 8 states that were banned.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I said, what I want to do is hire lawyers, lobbyists, and sociologists to come to the tattoo conventions to talk about all these issues. I want to set up a fund for any tattoo artist who's going to get closed down because of city agencies, and support them, back them up. And I came up with all these ideas, and then Don and I had them change the name of it from the club to the association.
Association, yeah.
But Don and Flo were like, there were a lot of weird things going on behind the scenes, money being made from
from the supply company and everything else. Yeah.
So they didn't really want to draw that much attention. So they backed out and kind of pushed me away.
Right. Well, I mean, National was kind of a, being like a young tattooer, it seemed like it was like a bit of a boys' club.
Oh, it was.
You know what I mean? It was very much a boys' club. You were either in or you weren't. But there were so many people that wanted to be part of it.
Oh, you had to kiss their ass.
And that was one of the things I think when I got into it, I couldn't really give a shit. I just wanted a tattoo.
Yeah, I mean, really Don was running around in a powder blue leisure suit, and Flo was like.
I remember because you guys used to have like a black tie event on the Friday night or whatever.
Yeah, we talked them into getting people to get escorted out during the contests.
Oh, for real.
Pat Sinatra and I, we said, look, these people are ready to pass out because they're standing in front of a crowd of people. They all want to get tattooed and be seen, but then when they're being focused on...
Yeah, they're freaking out.
Yeah, so we had people escort them out and all that stuff.
And it's funny because you look at the scene now and it's like people, like you got people going to conventions literally just to want to show off their
they
work
get naked.
TV. Yeah, exactly. So it's it's amazing how it starts off with it's like anything else. It starts off really humble and then grows into a beast.
Right. So, they backed off. They were like, you this isn't your place, you know what I mean? We're going to go back to being the club, although they never changed the name back from association. And Pat Sinatra and I kind of got pushed out.
Right. Now, what happened with APT? Were you part of the ground of that?
I came in on that with, Mick Michelle Beasley, Tom Beasley's wife,
right.
Pat Sinatra, and I, and the pathologist.
Oh, crap! What's his name?
Yeah,
fuck! I remember when it popped up.
Yeah, he would take his wallet out and have all these pictures of people with their faces blown off with shotguns and stuff. I'm sorry, I don't know. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I can't remember his name either. It was so long ago.
So, he wanted to be in. He wanted to help, and I thought this is great, right? So, Pat Sinatra was, designing graphics and stuff like that, and Bob Montagna was involved.
Yeah.
Early on, and Bob was like writing all these crazy letters about how the government's going to take away money, and there was all this paranoid stuff he'd write to me. Don't tell anybody this.
Well, I can imagine back then there had to be a lot of people like not showing all their cards.
Yeah.
Because it was at a time where you had more and more shops opening up, so you had less and less people wanting to take part in a group. Like you had a group, and it's like that today. I think you have a group of people that want to be all in on legitimization, but you also have that group that wants nothing to fucking do with it.
Yeah, they want things to be illegal again.
Yeah,
basically. So I mean, at any rate, the whole thing got started, and I wrote the bylaws, and I said there'd be different levels of application. You could be an apprentice and apply, and then we're going to use that money for defending people and, having lawyers, having lobbyists.
Yeah. I remember when it came out, it seemed like such a great idea.
Yeah, it was really powerful and it was solid, But what happened was there was a $10,000 that got embezzled.
Yeah, I remember hearing that too. Okay. And I remember when it came up again where everybody's like, oh, the APT. And everybody's like, dude, fuck the APT. It's full of a bunch of crooks.
I backed out right then and there. I was like, that's it. And the other thing was one of the head people that got the thing started wanted to create a separate organization like the Board of Beauty Culture and go around and make deals with the state that they had to come to us to be trained so that before they could get a license to tattoo. And I said, are you out of your mind? You're going to get shot. You can't. First of all, I said, you're having a hard enough time trying to get people to come on board for the APT so that we could work together. Then you're going to go into a state and they're going to tell tattoo artists you have to go to them.
Yeah. It took Oregon, how many years before they made the schooling thing? Like, you could be 20 years under your belt. You move to Oregon, you gotta take this class.
Yeah, got to go to a school.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I mean, the part of me, looking at the situation we find ourselves in now, it's like I almost like you look at it as like, well, maybe that was a good idea, but then you realize just how little effect it's actually had on anything.
Yeah.
And shit is just wild, wild west still. It's still insane.
Well, what happened was it was started to get corporatized. You know,
Right.
people who didn't have anything to do with tattooing were putting money up, opening up shops, and there'd be 10,000 people waiting to work for them.
Right, exactly.
And then the supply businesses started to get corporatized, and pretty soon you're open up Sears catalog, and you could buy a tattoo machine.
Well, it's funny when the catalogs first came out, like Stanley and Walters, and you had
Right.
the National. I mean,
Spalding.
Nationals look like and Spalding looked like an old Sears and Roebuck's catalog.
Right, yeah.
I remember getting those and just being like, "Oh my god, this
That was
is
Bill
amazing!"
DeMichael.
That was all my. That was
Bill
all
DeMichael designed it all and
put
photographed
it all together. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all the original Spalding and Rogers stuff was Bill DeMichael.
And it was funny too because that became a bit of tattoo history because. I mean, now everything's been glamorized, obviously, but to see that stuff from back in the day, just getting raw needle bars, and it's like you're buying everything to build a kit versus just buying the kit,
Sure.
which I think is pretty wild to have seen,
Yeah, I mean, I went to Sweden, became friends with Doc Forrest because I went early on in the 80s to British conventions. I was like the only American there,
Right.
and I met all these European guys who were really advanced and doing incredible work. I became friends with Doc Forrest, and he said, "Come to Sweden, come work with me." So I went out there, and he taught me how to hand make tubes, and you use a rat tail file and hammer down the end, and make an open shader tube, and we wrapped coils, and he made these beautiful machines. I don't know if you know anything about his machines.
No, I actually don't. No.
They look like Arlen Ness, motorcycles. They had carvings on them. They had wooden pieces. They were, spray painted.
Just like a piece of art.
They were beautiful.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. But if you didn't have that wooden piece on the bottom, it'd burn the back of your hand. You had to wear a leather.
Yeah.
There was no capacitor. You could light a cigarette off with a spark. You know what I mean?
Nice.
It would burn through springs and. Oh God, he was such a great guy. I miss him so much.
So my first introduction to that was the Mickey B's and Mickey Sharp stuff.
Right,
You know what I
Mickey
mean?
B was British.
Exactly.
British guy.
And it was one of those things I remember, like, we'd have to order our machines.
Well,
like,
Mickey B was Mickey Sharp's
offshoot of Mickey
apprentice.
Sharp's, exactly.
And they had that was really
Oh,
tough.
I remember. Like, so
That's a tough
when the breakup first happened, I was just like, "Oh, you gotta get these Mickey B's machines," and they were like a third of the price. And back then, you could buy shit. I don't know if it was an issue with. I don't know if it was a mistake on somebody's part or it was just the conversion rate or whatever. But we ended up buying like 9 machines for like a few $100s.
Yeah.
And we were just like, "This is
cheap.
incredible." Yeah.
So I met Mickey Sharps, and he was in this Irish band. He played the drum with the two things.
Oh, I didn't know that actually. No, I had no idea. Okay.
And we became friends, and so I wanted to buy his his telephone dial machines. So we called him on the phone, and I had like 4 guys working with me at the time, and we got on the phone and we started singing Monty Python's Spam. We want 2 liners and a can of Spam. Spam, 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 spam. We started singing this stuff out of right, and we're laughing, and we ordered all these machines. And my machines come, right, they're in a box. I open them up and it says Spam Machine number 102.
That's fucking
whatever.
cool.
And then he sent us cans of Spam, which he engraved.
Nice. You don't have any of this stuff.
No, they all rusted out,
Yeah.
but as a matter of fact, I just let go of my Mickey Sharp's machines just recently.
I still have mine. Mine.
I have
probably
one.
nearly as- yeah.
But I had 6 at one point.
Yeah, so I still have like, I only have one original like early Mickey Sharps, a couple of I had like 6
The
original
mini
Mickey B's.
dials, and then he made the other one. So anyway, we go to the convention that year, and I bought Spam T-shirts, and I had put on it because it said Spam, and it said Shotsie Spam Team. And I had
Nice.
everybody wearing these, and I opened up cans of Spam, and I put like loose leaf rings through them, and it said the world's first pierced Spam. It was all out on the table, and the Brits are scratching their head. They're like, "What the fuck is with the Spam?"
Yeah,
We're all like,
exactly.
"Spam, Spam, Spam." By then, Monty Python was old.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, but
I was gonna say
it was new here, but it was old there.
There, it was
you know?
kind of like, what the fuck? Who
And
cares?
Mickey Sharps was pissing his pants. It was really fun.
Nice.
You know?
So you had a successful shop in Jersey for many years, and then you decided up and moved to fucking California.
Well, what happened was I had this shop. I opened up in Haledon, New Jersey. I went from Union City to Haledon, which was next to Patterson. Was a homeboy, so
Yeah.
I kept busy there. And then I opened up a second shop in Haledon on the main street. And then I opened up in Wayne, the 6-lane highway. 2,000
I think I
square foot
tattooed a
shop.
couple of the guys from Wayne, like back in the day.
Scotty,
Yeah.
and I had all these guys working for me. That was a big shop, and it was a big deal. And it was quite successful shop. And things went south in my personal life. My first wife had alcohol problems. She ended up dying, and I decided I had had enough, and I just wanted out. And so I sold the shop. And Kristine and I had met and fell in love. And I said to her, I don't want to stay here anymore. It's like the scene of the crime. I want to get out of here.
Especially for when you've grown up in that area and you've had a successful
I had a
business
big house up in Warwick, New York, 4,000 square foot house, 6 acres, swimming pool, blah, 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 koi pond, I said, I have all this stuff. What do I need it for? I don't need any of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I got rid of everything. I emptied out. And I just said to Kristine, let's go. So we went to Arizona.
I remember that.
We were only there for a year and a half.
Yeah, it was fucking Arizona.
It was like, holy shit, 108 degrees in the sun. Not only that, but everybody that we met was some retired Republican.
Yeah,
And it was the most racist place I'd ever been in my whole life.
It seems to be that's why everybody from California is now living in, a lot of those people moved from California to Arizona, and you got to let the locals are pissed.
Yeah.
By that. They're just like, you can't come here and fucking change things.
Sheriff Arpaio passed the first, really vicious bill against Mexican immigrants. But no, it was a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
I said to Kristine, we're out of here. We're leaving. Our kid was really little, preschool. So I said, we're going to California. And we ended up in Northern California. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I'll be able to mix with all the California boys and stuff like that. Oh, man, they were so pissed that I moved into town.
Yeah, there's a big difference between East Coast and
oh,
West
yeah,
Coast.
Along the way, Ed Hardy tried to block me from a lot of things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he didn't like that I had a magazine. He hated the fact that I was on TV. So I get a call from my friends in Italy. They're like, hey, there's going to be this show in Italy, and it's going to be the government's putting it on, and it's illegal to tattoo in Italy. They're going to be putting on a show, right? And that's Lyle Tuttle at the show hanging on the wall.
Oh, shit, okay.
So I said, I don't know anything about it. How come I hadn't heard anything? They're like, I don't know, but they're going to have people from all over the United States. So I get the guy's number that's running the show. I call him up, Giorgio Orsini. I said, I'm working in New Jersey, and I haven't heard anything about the show. He goes, well, Ed Hardy said there was nobody on the East Coast worth looking at. And I said, well, I've been tattooing a long time. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, you send me some photos. So I overnighted a bunch of 8x10s.
Yeah.
He got them. He called me on the phone. He goes, not only you're going to be in the show, putting you in the catalog, and we're going to give you a free room, and we're flying you out to Italy.
You burned somebody's ass that day.
Oh, man. So I show up, and Hardy's like, this guy crashed the party. He's not supposed to be here, and he's got Bill Salmon running around telling everybody, don't talk to that guy. He's not supposed to be here and shit. And I went up to him. There's like all these boys around, and I'm like, what the fuck is your problem? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I see you acting like I'm trying to get your wife in the hot tub. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even know me. And he goes, well, you're an East Coast kind of guy, and I'm a West Coast kind of guy. I said, man, I should bitch slap you in front of all your boys here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I said, because you're a total asshole, and I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. So I told Giorgio Orsini, I want you to hold a meeting, and he called everybody in. Lyle loved this, man, because Lyle liked to bust Ed Hardy's chops pretty good.
Yeah.
So anyway, he calls a meeting, and he's like, Shotsie is here because we chose him to be here. We want him to be in the show. He's in the catalog. He's going to be tattooing, and he's going to be in the exhibition. He's going to be giving a talk and this and that. Hardy got up and left the room, So we've never got along. And the funny part is that when I went out to be in Lyle's first ever tattoo roast, I was one of the roasters.
Oh, for real?
He said, I want you to do me a favor. He goes, I'm going to tell everybody that I'm selling everything to you. My collection, my shop. He goes, and I'm going to spread that word. And when you come out, I want you to back me up. So, and Hardy was like bright red the whole time. That son of a bitch is coming over from the East Coast. He's going to end up at the Hall collection.
I'm going to take it back. I'm going to take it back to Jersey.
And so Lyle just loved me for that. We became very close, you know. I went out there and he was introducing, inducted Betty Broadbent into the Hall of Fame, right? He had this Hall of Fame thing. So we're at his shop, and Betty Broadbent's there, and the news comes in and everything, and they're saying, you guys going to do something? And Lyle said, do you want me to tattoo you or something? She goes, and I was flirting with her, you know. I mean, she was like 90 years old.
Yeah, right.
And she had ankles the size of my thighs, you know what I mean? And I'm like, she said, yeah, I want him to tattoo me.
Nice.
So I got to tattoo a little butterfly on Betty Broadbent's foot, you know,
That's
that
pretty
big.
cool. Nice.
And it was in all the news and stuff like that. And so that was it was fun.
That's
you know
fucking
what I mean?
super cool.
But Ed really like put the kibosh, tried to squeeze me out of everything and anything. And when I moved to California, I said to Kristine, this guy hates me and he's got a lot of pull.
And you guys have never really tried to.
Oh, I've tried many times.
And he just wants nothing to do with it.
I presented him with this idea early on. I said, look, here's what I want to do. I want to do a show that goes from city to city and picks up the tattoo artists that are local, exhibition of tattoos, photographs, paintings, whatever. And as it moves around the country, I want it to pick up more and more work. But I don't want to have it in museums. I want to put it in Grand Central Station.
Right, do something a little bit more.
Well, there's 10,000 people,
exactly.
you know, that are going to see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I proposed all this stuff, right? He sent me back one sentence. I'm not interested. That was it. This was, of course, before internet and
Yeah, right.
cell phones. And I was like...
It almost makes more of an impact. Yeah. Someone took the time to do it and then nail it.
Then guess what? He started taking a show around the country.
Yeah.
But he wanted to show them in galleries and museums.
So I think, you know, that's been the thing since day one of me getting into this business. There's always been sides. I say it now with what's the younger generation of. There's all these cliques. You know what I mean? It's just different. I think it's partially an artist thing. I think it's a major ego thing. Because I mean, we're fucking egomaniacs. Some of us, you know what I mean. It's It's part of being an artist. It's part of what makes you separate from everybody else. It's part of what drives you to get to the next level of whatever part of your.
Well, I think there are in the tattoo world there are people who are artists and who are striving to do something which is personal and unique. Like when I went to Europe, I was shocked because I thought everybody in America is like dogs. They're all smelling each other's behind to see what they're doing. And then they're copying this guy, copying that guy. And then, of course, Ed pushing neo-traditional stuff. And Leo Zulueta doing the black tribal stuff, you know what I mean? Which I hate to cover up.
Yeah. I mean, it's some legit cover-ups.
Yeah. 80s tribal, like, oh, God, you know. So at any rate, I go to Europe and everybody's doing something unique, something personal. And it dawned on me, this is art. They're making art. You know, like you got guys like, all these guys that were doing fantastic work and it's all personal.
Right.
Nobody's copying anybody else. And I went back to America and I was like, hey, you guys have to pay attention to what's happening here.
Right.
You know, start creating something that's yours and yours alone. Well, I caught a lot of crap for that. You know.
Well, that's the thing. I think nobody wants to, especially when you're talking about a certain individual, because I mean that's been the thing. Like, people don't want anybody treading on somebody that they admire or somebody they look up to or somebody they worship for the most part. And Ed has that kind of reputation. I mean, he's been.
Oh, look, Ed is a super talented guy.
Yeah,
he's smart.
Yeah.
He's one of the first guys to really make arrangements to, coordinate with Japan.
Yeah.
I had, the highest respect.
I think everybody,
done.
like you, him, like there's certain individuals like coming up they have their part. they have their part to play in
Yeah.
the way the business has.
Yeah, don't misunderstand me. I always had great respect for
Right.
for Ed. You know,
Right.
even though he was a total prick. to
Well,
me.
I mean, the fact is, there are people that I can't fucking stand that I came up with, and I've been pretty vocal about it with certain things. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just nature of the beast with our.
Yeah,
with
well,
our
see,
trade.
the thing was, he stepped up and said he was the Don, Don Ed Hardy,
Yeah.
and said that nobody was opening up in San Francisco. He was going to squash anybody that tried to open up. And it
Right.
was like, what? What, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then, he had his little crew going out, like, busting people's chops and stuff.
Well,
like
I think that was kind of an East Coast thing that they kind of
Yeah, they
brought to
borrowed,
the West
right.
Coast.
Well, that's
It's
how
like-
Philadelphia Eddie and Peter Poulos got together, because Peter opened up a shop in Long Island or
Right.
something.
Oh, dude,
And then Philadelphia Eddie threw a brick through his window, so Peter signed a cinder block and threw it through Eddie's window, and then he threw a firebomb. You know what I mean? And then Philadelphia Eddie said, "You're all right, kid," and they shook
exactly.
hands, and they became friends. You know what I mean? And that's
they're cut from the same fucking cloth. That's the problem with most, that's the problem with most issues in this fucking business is they're too much alike. That's the problem. Is they just they no.
But
they
thank
don't-
God that happened, because that's the reason for National
Exactly right.
Tattoo Association and the conventions, and it was all Peter, and Peter had like presented himself as a devil worshiper, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you know much about Peter.
No, so it's funny. Like most of what I know is after him, from Larry and everything else.
Yeah,
but
from Larry
but that
Romano.
shop had a reputation as being that fucking shop, and if you work there, it's the only
You couldn't
shop
work
ever
anywhere else.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so growing up on Long Island, that was like one of those things. Like when I considered leaving the shop I was in to go there, the guy I worked for was like, "No, like, dude, don't do it. This isn't me telling you you can't leave here. This is me telling you you do not want to do that."
Yeah, once you join the crowd, that's it.
Exactly. There's no leaving.
So I meet him at a tattoo convention, Peter, and I had done this tiger on this guy, and I worked on it for months. I kept doing layers and layers of color and stuff. And he comes up and he's looking and he goes, "Who the fuck are you?" I introduced myself. I said, "Mr. Poulos, I really love your work." And, I saw him do this like 7-needle shader, 4 horses coming out of the water kind of
Right.
thing. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, right? And so he goes, "How the fuck did you make that color in there?" This and that. And he sits down and he goes, "Give me your phone number." Right? And he says, "I want you to come out and tattoo me." He was in Phoenix at the time, Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm like, "Okay, great. Well, Peter Poulos wants me to tattoo him." So I get back to the house and I get this phone call in here. "I got a collect call from Mr. Ed Hardy. Will you accept the charges?" I was like, "What? Why would Ed Hardy be calling me collect, first
Yeah,
of
right.
all?" I'm like, "Okay." And he gets on the phone. "Fuck you, man. You think Ed Hardy's calling you, you asshole?" He says, and he keeps doing this kind of shit to me, right? And he knew that I wanted to buy Native American carpets, and he started sending me boxes of them.
Oh shit, for real.
And he said, "You pick what you want, and you buy that, and you send the rest back, that kind of thing." And says, "Okay, I want to get tattooed, but the only place I have to tattoo now is my ass." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Here's what I want. I want a woman about to give fellatio to a penis." He said, "But the head of the penis wants to be a demon." He goes, "And in her hair are all these demons, And I'm like, "Okay." So I start working on the drawing. Now I'm hearing all these stories about how he's in league with the devil and stuff. And Larry Romano
Right,
is
yeah.
like the steel balls,
Yeah.
And so he flies me out to Phoenix, and he sends this guy to pick me up. He goes, "Oh, my guy's going to pick you up." And he's like Luca Brasi, this guy.
Yeah.
He comes over and he goes, "Shotsie," and I'm like, "Yeah, Peter said I must drive you out." Okay, so we go. The guy's like 6'5", weighs about 400 pounds, like a wall of human.
Yeah.
I get in. He says, "Sit in the back." I sit in the back of the car. I'm like, okay.
It's like, where the fuck
So
are
we're
we
driving and I'm like, "Where the fuck are we going?" He said, "Oh, he's got a compound and he's out in the middle of the desert, right? He's got this big Quonset hut and he's raising wolf dogs."
Shit, really?
Yeah, I mean, they're like this big, and so Luca Brasi takes me into the place. I go in and there's 7 guys standing around. They all got guns out. "Well, and I rifled out the thing and I made this and that," and I'm like, "What the fuck am I into here?"
In the
Right?
nowhere desert.
So they send Luca Brazzi out to get some beer, and he comes back in, and I'm like, "Where's Peter?" They're like, "Oh, he's flying in." So one of his friends was flying him in from Long Island to
Arizona.
Arizona, right? It's one of his buddies. So they send Luca Brazzi out for beer. He comes in, and they're like, "That's the wrong fucking beer," and that guy turned white as a sheet, and I thought, "What is happening?" Go out, get the right beer. And he had to bend over to get through the doorway, this guy, you know what I mean? So and then Peter finally comes in, and I said, "Peter, look, out of respect for you and stuff," I said, I'm not comfortable with all these guns, man. I'm really I don't feel good about this, Okay, you guys, put the guns away. I don't ever want to see another gun while Shotsie's here. I was like, uh-oh. I don't know what I'm into here. I don't know what's happening. But I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, or not even in Phoenix. I'm somewhere in the desert with this guy. Come on, he goes, come on, we're going to go out and have something to eat, and he takes me out, and we go to some diner, restaurant, and he sits outside, and I had short sleeve shirt, and it's 100 degrees, and he's wearing a sweater. He's like, what, you don't mind people seeing your tattoos? I said, no, that's why I got tattooed. I don't let people see my tattoos when I'm out. He goes, okay. He goes, we're going to take a ride. He goes, I want to show you this coffin that I bought. What? Okay.
This all sounds like a bad setup for fucking...
All right.
Yeah.
So we go to this place, and he brings me to this place, and he shows me his coffin, which has got devils and gargoyles and stuff all over it, you know what I mean? I said, you're 30 years old. What are you buying a coffin? What's wrong with you? He goes, I wanted to have the exactly right one and all this. Right. He goes, in my business, you never know. And I'm like, okay, your business is tattooing? Maybe a little bit of other stuff on the side. Some other stuff. So we leave the coffin place, and he goes, I got to go check out my motorcycle. These guys are supposed to repair it. Now we're driving. And we get to another Quonset hut, right? Bikes everywhere. We go in, get inside. He takes a gun out from his back like this, and the guy's behind the desk, and he sticks the gun in the guy's face, right? Where the fuck is my motorcycle, you asshole? And everybody pulls out a gun, right? They all got shotguns, and I'm standing there like, I'm going to get killed. I don't even know what's happening, Peter, what's going on? And he goes, motherfucker, you told me you were going to have my... And then he puts the gun down, and they all start laughing. Oh. And I'm like, I almost shit my pants, I was like, what the fuck? So it turns out that this is the Dirty Dozen. Now, these are guys who all been thrown out of the Hells Angels because they're too crazy.
And now they're doing that.
And they're out in the desert, so they don't kill anybody, I guess. Or they have a place to bury the ones they kill.
Jesus Christ. Ugh.
So now we go back to the shop. I show him the design. I love it, this and that. So we go to his workplace. We're in his work area. There's like 8 guys standing around, sitting on chairs and stuff. And I said, okay, we're going to have to make a transfer and print this on your ass before we go ahead, right? He drops his pants. He starts going around the room, shaking his penis at these guys, right? Come on, I know you want to suck my cock. He's going, and he's shaking his penis, right? And I'm like, what? One after another. He went to every guy in the room. Then he comes over to me, right? And I'm like, I grab his cock, and I start pulling him around the room like a Tonka toy. And he's like, woo! He's screaming, right? I said, motherfucker, you shake that thing at me, I'll cut it right the fuck off, because I was using a straight razor.
So now you're feeling more confident.
No, I'm like, who the fuck you think you're doing? Who you talking to here? You know what I mean? And so he starts laughing. All the guys are up like this. They're all like... So I said, get your fucking ass on the table now. Let's get this tattoo started. Quit fucking around, you know what I mean? So I print the tattoo on him, and we start tattooing. And, I did this tattoo on his ass.
On his ass?
Right. As a woman with a penis, and there's all these demons, and I'm tattooing his ass, and all of his boys are sweating. Shit. They don't know what's going on.
For fuck's sake.
So, I fly home, and he starts sending me all these things. He's calling me all the time. You're a pain in the ass. My ass still hurts, and this and that. 3 weeks later, he was murdered.
Yeah. Fuck.
So he had his coffin. It was all set up. Everything was done, and they came out to Long Island. for him to drive around past all those tattoo shops, and I had all 76 DeVille
Oh, for real?
filled with people, and I drove around with the funeral. His wife said that he really loved me, wanted me to be part of it.
Oh, that was nice. I mean,
Yeah, so I drove around Long Island, going to all those tattoo shops that he owned, and then to the graveyard where they buried him. But I'll tell you what, it was a wild experience.
that's that's some crazy shit. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't really happen like that anymore. So, that's some like a Roy Boy shit. So,
Yeah, boy, here's another one. We spent some time together. Hey, want to go out and shoot some M60 machine guns? I'm like, what? Yeah, about $8,000 worth of ammunition.
Jesus, unbelievable. Yeah, those were different times, man. Like, it's funny. I got to see all that on video in the shop that I apprenticed in. It was just like, what the fuck is
I'm
this?
in 2 of those videos.
Are you really?
Yeah, in 2 of
Oh,
the
wait,
videos.
and when they did the interviews for the tattooers and stuff like that, that used to play on a loop in the shop that I apprenticed in every single fucking day.
He had this power boat, and he was putting it into competition. And lady, what's her name? Jewish pop star singer Barbara Streisand had a boat that she sponsored, and he went up to her and started giving her a ration of shit. They called the cops, and they had to escort him out of there because he was giving shit to Barbara Streisand of all
He
people.
was starting trouble with the celebrities. For fuck's sake.
He was something else, man.
All right, well,
Where else we wanna go
I was
with
going to
this?
say, I think we should get to where you're at now, because we've been talking for a bit.
Yeah, I'd say.
The little green bar is still moving up and down, right? I just want to make sure.
So, I guess what happened, right? I go to California, and I go to see, tattoo artists that are set up in San Francisco, and I'm like, hey, I want to work 3 days a week. I'm in Sonoma. It's a 45-minute drive.
Right.
I don't want a full-time
You
job.
just want a
But
place to work, yeah.
everybody turned me down, one after another.
Really?
Everybody turned me down. I come home to Kristine. I'm like, I can't get a job. I don't understand what's going on. They all know me. They've known me for years at tattoo conventions and stuff. And they're like, oh, we can't have you working here. And I didn't really get it. So I call up Henry Goldfield, and I said, I'd like to come out and talk to you. I got tattooed by a bunch of people at Henry Goldfield, so I'd go out to California and get tattooed. And I said, I'm looking for a spot, I said, just want to work 3 days a week, come in, do my thing, and leave. And I can't hire you. I'm like, Henry, how long you know me? 35 years? I mean, it's like,
Yeah, it's
what
kind
do
of
you mean you can't hire me? I said, everybody's telling me the same story. He goes, yeah, well, if I hire you, my employers are going to be pissed off because you're going to be clipping all their clients. I said, yeah, but you don't see dollar signs over my head? I mean, everybody knows who I am. I want to work. I'm not asking for a full-time job.
Yeah. And just couldn't get... You just couldn't
Wouldn't
find
hire
work.
me. So I got invited to go to a tattoo convention at the Cow Palace. And there's a circle of guys standing around talking, and I come up and I'm like, hey, I'm looking for work. I want a job, right? So this guy that owned the tattoo shop on Haight and Masonic wasn't even a tattoo artist. He bought out the shop from the guy who owned it. And he said, I'll give you a job. Okay, great. San Francisco, couldn't find a place to park, and it's just crowded with people coming there looking for 60s, the summer of love in the 60s, and it's just shithole, right? And all I did was tourists and the same crap every day, and it was really bad, So I just couldn't take it. I went to another convention, and I was talking to people saying, I need to get out of this place, and I want a job. I mean, I don't understand. And got it. Karen Rose came up to me. She owned a shop in Berkeley. And she said, you want to work in Berkeley? I'll give you a job tomorrow. I was like, really? She goes, yeah. Don't mind my other employees. They're going to complain, but I don't care.
Young guys or older guys?
Yeah, some of them had been there like 11 years working for her, right? So I show up in Berkeley, and they're all like this, this place has got enough tattoo artists. We don't need another tattoo artist, and this and that. And I'm like, well, your boss hired me, so I'm here. This is going to be my station.
Yeah, right.
I'm only going to be here 4 days a week. You know, it took 4 days instead of 3. It was like the bunny ranch, like I said. So they'd all have their books out front. Somebody would come through the door. Everybody would get up and go up there. And I'd be sitting there like, we need some kind of order.
Well, it's funny, like an old school, whoever's there first gets tattooed first. Yeah.
Or if you're booked up and the other guy's got nothing, he gets the walk-in.
Yeah, right.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Normal etiquette.
Yeah.
Right? So 2 crackheads come in and I want to get, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And then they start touching everything. And she had an altar with glasses of water around the saint and everything. And the guy starts drinking the water. And I'm like, hey, asshole, that's not for you. You want to drink water, get your water, right? Well, we want this, we want that. And finally, I'm like, okay, that's it. I get behind the idiot fence, the block, and I go over and I grab them both by the neck and I go the door. Boom! Okay, that's it. Get the fuck out, I turn around and all of them are like that.
It's like, you guys want to tattoo them?
Yeah. I said, you see that they're cranked out of their minds. They don't want a tattoo. Yeah. They're looking to steal something.
They're just looking at that spend some time here.
See what they can get. There's jewelry out there and stuff,
So you were in California for how many years before you moved back here now?
15 years.
Wow, it was a fucking long time. I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah, I opened up a shop in Sonoma. There was no shops in Sonoma.
Right.
On the main street in a beautiful building. Pissed everybody off because Sonoma's very snooty.
Yeah.
Wine country.
Yeah, wine country and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and I opened up and Kristine had a tarot card station and eventually I hired a woman who did cosmetic tattooing, but I tried to hire other artists and all of them had like either drug issues or...
I had a couple of friends that moved out to Northern California, like wine country, and they had a hard time East Coast going out there and trying to make a living. It was really
Nobody wanted to talk to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd show up at these conventions and events, like get asked to be in an exhibition of Flash and stuff like that, and the guys wouldn't give me the time of day,
Yeah.
like Grimy and those guys, they wouldn't talk to me.
Yeah.
Then Grime calls me up recently, he's like, I understand you have all this audio tape of Bob Shaw. I said, yeah, I spent a whole week with him, interviewing him. I said, I got it all on tape. Well, I'm going to write a book about Bob Shaw. Can you send me those? What? Like you wouldn't even talk to me when I was a neighbor of yours.
Yeah.
And now you want me to send you my tapes on Bob Shaw? I don't think so.
That's a tough call, man, because like you said, you put the time in for yourself, whether it be personal or whatever, you know what I mean? And then to just give it away is kind of fucked up.
Well, I mean, look, I would have shared if he was at least treated me decently or talked to me like
I think a lot of tattooers have a tendency to not realize the bridges that they're burning. I mean, I know I've done it in the past. And
all of us do that as human beings, But this is a cooperative thing, what I mean?
Right.
And like guys who I was pretty good friends with, and we'd hang out at the conventions or go out to have dinner, and I get to California and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be living in Sonoma. Let's get together. Okay. And then I'd wait. One guy I was waiting to have lunch with, I said, well, I got to have to go back in to go to work, right? He never showed up.
Yeah.
I'd call him on the phone. I'm like, what happened? Well, I had to fold cardboard boxes with my girlfriend. Well, you couldn't call me? I waited for you, and you couldn't call me? How long we know each other? 25 years?
California's a special place, man. Yeah. But the friendships there are much different than the friendships here, most certainly. So
it is Jersey guys, man. You know what? If I'm your friend, I go to the fucking wall with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I go to war to protect you.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is.
Yeah.
This is where I come from. Friendship is a whole different thing, Out there, it's just like, I don't know. I didn't get it. And I made it obvious because anybody that, disrespected me, I got in their shit.
Yeah.
Fast.
Yeah. Understandable.
I mean, like, who the fuck you think you're talking to?
Understandable. Especially when you have that much time under your belt.
Yeah.
Just as a person, as an adult, you know what I mean? That's a bitter pill,
And I just told people, look, where I come from, people are like, fuck you, I don't like you. Yeah, good. I know where I stand.
Again, that's
if you're going to shake my hand and pat my back and then call me a jerk off when I walk away, we're going to have a real problem.
That's kind of a West Coast thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always been the case.
I always tell people on the West Coast, I was like, look, in New Jersey, indifference is an art form.
Yeah.
You know, you go to a fucking store and people are like, oh, Christ, I got to take care of this guy. You know?
Exactly.
I said, but out here in California, you guys are so passive aggressive. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I can't take it. Don't lie to me. Don't bullshit me. If you don't like me, just tell me up front.
Tell me to fuck off.
I know where I stand. That's perfect.
That's understandable. And
You know,
that's, again,
it's more reasonable. You know
very
what I
East
mean?
Coast.
Yeah.
Very East Coast of you. Very practical.
Right.
So now you're here. You're in Pennsylvania. You're on the border of Pennsylvania.
Right.
You're working with Scott over at...
Yeah, Scott
Mercury.
Bramble. What happened was I came to town and a bunch of people started talking about Scott and his shop and that he was a really great guy, and I never met him.
I had met him years ago, and the same thing. It was like, I was like, man, I met him through a friend of mine up north who introduced me to him. Super nice guy.
We were in actually a coffin painting show that traveled all over the world, and I didn't know he was part of it. You know what I mean?
Nice.
That Damien did from Toronto.
Okay.
And
I was part of that show too. Yeah.
My paintings were in there, and it was Scott had paintings in there, and it traveled all over China.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so I said, okay, I'll go meet this guy, and I met him and I talked to him, and I just liked him immediately.
Yeah, he's in like
You know what I mean?
Doylestown, which is a
Yeah.
beautiful little like.
Yeah, it's a nice little town. His shop's a little off the main street.
Yeah.
And, but he's got 3 other shops that have opened up on top of him now, you know. So, but he was open to my being there, and I said, I don't want to work full time, a couple of days, 3 days a week, and I'm mostly going to start to do clients from North Jersey, and he made a good deal with me, and I've been there. I mean, I got a little hole in the wall spot. You know, I mean, my booth is like, you can hardly put the massage table down, you know, without chasing
Well,
everybody out.
he's in like a little historic building and stuff.
Yeah, it's a little
too,
tiny place. And he does incredible graphic work.
Yeah.
He's really talented. And the other guy, Frank Gutierrez, he does this American traditional, but he does his own spin on it.
Right.
And it's really very, very good. He's super good, you know. So they're both like top-notch tattooers.
Very cool.
You know, so I actually haven't had a great deal of success drawing in a lot of new clients.
Right. Well, dude, I think I know me personally, it's become very generational.
Yeah.
I think the older generation, you know, we attract our own generation that wants to get tattooed, but the younger generation wants to kind of stick with the. They're not really caring about lineage, and they're not really caring about how much experience one has.
You go to conventions, and these kids come up and they're looking at my portfolio, and I get up to them, and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going, guys? You thinking about getting a tattoo?" And they back up. Like,
Yeah, they're not used to being spoken to, and that's why I laughed about like.
And I'm like, you're looking through my stuff. This is my paintings. This is my artwork. I said, and they're going, "Are you talking to us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm talking to you. What do you want me to do? Text you?" Kristine's like, "You can't say that. You can't say that to these kids. You know, they walk away." And I'm like, "Oh."
Oh, that's the thing. It's like they end up with the last laugh, so she's not entirely fucking wrong.
Right.
So, well, okay, so we're sitting in your studio here, and you've really embraced the more of the fine art, kind of like modern art, like.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of abstractions. I have a one-man show coming up at the George School, which is a very posh preparatory school in Newtown, Pennsylvania. And I was asked to be part of that show. I have several paintings at a gallery in New Hope, and I'm searching for another gallery to represent my work. But I do, many different things, right? I do photorealistic watercolor paintings, portraits, and things. And so when I was in California, I subsidized during 2020 shutdown. We were shut down for a year and a half.
I know, it was fucking nuts, man. California was a nightmare. I had friends in the UK and the EU that took a beating. Yeah. It kind of blew me away the way things worked out.
I started doing kid portraits and dog portraits and cat portraits. I mean, anything I could do to generate capital, because not only was I not allowed to open, but it was a $1,000 fine if I got caught tattooing, and they would take my license.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they threatened to take a license. If you find you tattooing, you will not be able to renew your license.
Yeah, it was kind of a fucked up time, man.
Yeah. So and Kristine was still doing her tarot and selling her paintings, and I was selling paintings, but man, I was not making real money. It was tough, and then the fires came. So 2017, fires got within a mile of our home. 200-foot wall of fire.
That's crazy.
Cops are like, out of here right now. So we threw the kid, the dog, the cats in the car and left. Yeah. and left everything behind. My books, all my art, my whole life
And
history.
hoping to come back to a home.
Right, and houses all around us burned to the ground.
That's incredible.
Then 2018, again, 10 miles from us.
Yeah.
And then 2019, again. So Kristine and I were like, I think it's time to go back east.
Yeah.
You know, because I was dissatisfied. I felt like I was going to have a sense of camaraderie with the people in the tattoo community, and they just didn't let me in.
It's that's a tough one, man. Like, you know, when you expect it to be something that it's not, you know what I mean? Like, you expect to get, like you said, you're meeting up with your peers. You could be hanging out with people you know, people who you came up with, whatever.
Yeah.
And it turns into this bullshit,
Yeah.
High school crap. You know?
Yeah, that's what it's like. High school cliques. I thought, God, these guys are like, this reminds me of high school.
Yeah.
And I beat a few people up in high school who tried to treat me like that, you know?
Well, you have the show coming up. You are doing a poetry reading later on this
Right.
evening.
Yeah, I'm a published poet. I've won second place in the Allen Ginsberg Prize in 1999.
Nice.
I have a published, one collection published. And I'm in probably about 30 anthologies with my work.
Nice.
Matter of fact, I had a really fun thing happen. I was in California. I got a call one day. I'm Professor so-and-so from the University of Bologna, and we would like to include you in our up-and-coming anthology on California poets. And I'm like, who is this really? You know, well, who told you to do this? Who's pulling my leg? And they're like, no, this is real. And I said, well, first of all, I'm a Jersey poet, but I live in California. And he's like, well, he goes, I saw your work on YouTube. I have a YouTube poetry.
Right. I'll have everything in the description.
He said, I saw your poetry. He goes, I want you in. So now I'm part of this anthology from the University of Bologna.
That's pretty wild, yeah.
Yeah, and I get this paperwork with all the other people that are in the anthology, and they're all like PhDs and professor at Harvard, in California, UCLA.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, cool. So I'm in with all these people. I start emailing them. Oh, how you doing, man? Mine says tattoo artist, you know.
How did they go over there?
Oh, it didn't go.
Oh, for real?
They didn't call me back or contact me on any level.
So you're just a man on an island.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So good thing we aren't gathering in the same place.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you'd be getting a piece of my New Jersey mind. And but I'm in it. You know what I mean? And just recently, we came out east, and I'm in 4 anthologies from Moon Productions. Poetry. He has events all over Philadelphia and the northern part of Pennsylvania. And he's put me into one every year.
That's killer.
And it just recently, CAPS, which is the Creative Artist Public Service
I
Program.
was going to say, I've actually heard
New York.
that, yeah.
I'm in their most recent anthology. So my work is, you don't make any money from poetry.
No,
You
but
know
it's
what I
still,
mean?
it's something that you can, I mean, it's nice to be actually a published,
Yeah,
poet. I mean,
it feels good.
Most
And
people go to the grave before that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I mix with other poets, and I really needed that because I'm tattooing, and you don't exactly get, a lot of PhDs coming through the door to get tattooed.
No, exactly.
And I really was hurting for that intellectual part of my life, which got stimulated by Mike Bacady. Speaking of the guy who got me into tattooing. Without him, he was my mentor, and he woke me. I mean, he was like a hood in Trenton, New Jersey, as a kid.
Right.
And he got in trouble with the law. He had to go in the Navy, and he becomes one of the top-rated, tattoo artists in the Northeast, and he also, got his PhD and.
He accomplished
Yeah, he was a brilliant guy. He did wonderful sculpture, an incredible man, good father, and he was everything that I needed at that point in my life.
Right.
I needed to learn that, It's and I carry those ethics that he taught me, and that's all I ever talked about the whole time I've been in tattooing.
Right.
I also told everybody, don't tattoo faces, you don't do Nazi symbols, and I said you have to have understanding that what you do changes people's lives.
Just common sense. Yeah.
Right. And so I have a couple of films, I didn't send them to you, but one's called Birdman, which is a funny story about Union City.
I watched that actually.
And the other one is, Quiet All That Noise, and it's about my philosophical stance on tattooing and the way I've maintained that to today, I still have that same idea, and I've always promoted tattooing. 46 years I've spent my entire time in this career convincing people that tattooing is an art form, it's a legitimate art form, it's historical art form, and that you have to have respect for what you do.
Right.
And that's disappeared.
So I don't. I
People
disagree.
just blacking out whole parts of.
I agree.
Bodies.
I think that it exists. I think that the world has got more going on in it now, and I think that the way you think and the things you believe still exists. I still think that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you've been around a while.
No, true, but I think there's a generation, a younger generation of tattooers that it's like the coil machine. There are certain things that are never going to go away. It just becomes few and far between. You know what I mean? And again, you know, when your world gets a little bit smaller because everything around you has gotten that much larger, it's harder to find those people through the cracks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this is just a matter of maintaining personal ethic and caring about the person that you're tattooing, not calling them canvas.
Yeah, I mean that again. TV has really kind of like bludgeoned. It's corrupted and bludgeoned the way people think about their clients. I mean, the first time I heard somebody, mention somebody as like, if calling them a client versus a customer, or what's your budget, and everything got really, really.
And then putting headphones on while you're tattooing.
Yeah, and then treating them like a block of wood.
You know what? I always tell them, look, part of being a tattoo artist is entertaining that person.
Yeah, it should be.
Make them feel safe. There's a relationship that's building.
That's a conversation I have with most people, which is it's an all-encompassing event. It shouldn't just be about catching a piece of art, because someone can get the best tattoo ever, and just had a miserable time getting that experience, that tattoo, and they
got to carry that with them everywhere they go, and that never goes away.
Exactly.
The attitude doesn't disappear. The tattoo is there, and it's always a reminder.
And it's always going to be a reminder
of how they were treated badly, robbed of their money. I mean, I don't understand. I really don't. How can you? Well, I mean, as a human being, I can't treat other people that way. No. I have concern about who they are. When they come to get tattooed, if I think they're going to do something which they're going to regret, I'm going to tell them, this is what I think. I'm going to go all papa on them, No, you have no other tattoos. I'm not tattooing a big rose on the back of your hand. You're 18 years old.
Again, we live in a world now where if you won't do it, there's dozens of others.
Oh, yeah, they're lined up.
Exactly.
But I just point them that way.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a shop right up the block over there.
Exactly.
You want shit written in Old English on your forehead?
He's the guy for
Go
it.
check him out.
Exactly.
Because I'm not doing that. I'm not taking responsibility. I have to wake up tomorrow morning and look at myself in the mirror
and feel good about
know
how
that I did something worthwhile.
Yeah. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And that is my code of ethics.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Something worthwhile. What's the point of being a human being? What's the point of being an artist if you're going to call yourself an artist? If you are just going to go around squishing people, and using them, and because there's lots of those out there.
Yeah, treating everything as a wallet and a payday. So,
it's about expressing things, helping other people who can't express themselves.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And that's what drove me into being an artist, and that's what keeps me being an artist. And it's great to be with you.
Same here, man. Again. Thank you very much. All right, on that note, I'm going to call it. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Not For Nothing. Like and subscribe. Thank you again. I really appreciate it. And by the way, I had a wonderful lunch, homemade pasta and sauce. It was fantastic.
Neapolitan sauce.
Exactly. It was fantastic. Thank you very much for tuning in. Everything will be in the description below, and see you when I see you. You can just